The sky above Veltar Prime burned with the orange glow of dying ships. Hannah pressed her face against the cold metal wall of the communications bunker and watched another orbital defense platform explode in the distance. The Krex Empire had come, without warning, 3 days ago. Now her beautiful world was turning into ash and death. Hannah wiped tears from her blue-scaled cheeks and turned back to her console. She was only 23 cycles old, but she was the last communications officer alive in the northern sector. All the senior staff were dead. The responsibility fell on her young shoulders to send the message that might save her people. The bunker shook as another Krex bombardment hit nearby. Dust fell from the ceiling and her console flickered for a moment. Hannah held her breath until the power stabilized. She could not afford to lose the transmission array now, not when she was so close to completing the distress signal. Her fingers moved quickly across the holographic interface. She had been working for 6 hours straight to boost the signal strength. The message needed to reach every corner of the galaxy. Someone had to hear them. Someone had to care enough to help. Through the reinforced windows she could see the capital city burning. Millions of Veltar civilians were trapped in the lower districts as Krex ground forces moved through the streets. The reports coming through her headset were horrible. The Krex were not just conquering territory, they were systematically killing every Veltar they found. Elder Keth called it genocide before the government building was destroyed yesterday. Hannah had not understood what that word meant until she saw the footage from the southern continent. Entire cities were empty now, not evacuated, empty. The Krex left nothing alive behind them. She finished encoding the visual records into the transmission. The galaxy needed to see what was happening here. They needed to understand that this was not a normal war. This was the complete destruction of her species. The console beeped softly. The signal was ready. Hannah took a deep breath and activated the emergency broadcast array. The message would go out on every frequency at maximum power. It would reach hundreds of civilizations across known space. "This is Communications Officer Hannah of the Veltar Republic," she spoke into the recording device. Her voice shook despite her efforts to stay calm. "We are under attack by the Krex Empire. They are not trying to conquer us. They are trying to kill all of us." She paused to steady herself. The bunker shook again from another explosion. Somewhere, above ground, a building collapsed with a thunderous crash. "We have lost 90% of our fleet. Our ground forces are scattered. Civilian casualties are in the millions and rising every hour. The Krex are using chemical weapons against population centers. They are bombing hospitals and schools. They are hunting down refugees in the wilderness." Hannah's voice broke as she thought about her younger brother. He had been studying at the university when the attacks began. She had not heard from him since the first day. She hoped he had escaped to the mountain caves with the other students. "We do not understand why they are doing this. We never attacked them. We never threatened them. We were a peaceful civilization focused on art and science. Now they are wiping us from existence." She attached the video files she had collected. Burning cities, mass graves, Krex soldiers, executing prisoners. The galaxy needed to see all of it. "I am transmitting our location and tactical data about Krex forces. We have 3 weeks of supplies left in the mountain strongholds, maybe less. If they find us, please, if anyone receives this message, if anyone can help us. We do not want to die." The transmission array hummed with power as it broadcast the message across the galaxy. Hannah watched the progress indicators climb slowly. It would take several hours to reach the nearest civilizations. Days to reach the far edges of known space. She slumped back in her chair and closed her eyes. There was nothing more she could do now except wait and hope. The Veltar had always believed in the goodness of other species. They had to believe that someone would answer their call for help. Far across the galaxy on a small blue planet, Captain Yoon was finishing his night shift at the Deep Space Communications Center. Earth was still new to galactic civilization. They had only made first contact 20 years ago. Most of the older species still treated humans like primitive newcomers. The alert tone made Yoon look up from his reports. A priority transmission was coming through the long-range array. That was unusual. Most galactic traffic was routine diplomatic messages or trade communications. Yoon accepted the transmission and began reviewing the contents. His expression grew darker as he watched the attached video files. He had seen war before during the Mars Rebellion, but this was different. This was systematic slaughter of civilians. He immediately forwarded the message to Admiral Park at Fleet Command. Then he called his communications team into the control room. They needed to verify the transmission and trace its origin point. "Sir," said Lieutenant Minho as he analyzed the signal data. "This is coming from the Kepler system. That is 3 weeks away at maximum fleet speed. What do we know about the species sending this?" Yoon asked. "The Veltar," replied Sergeant Sora as she pulled up the files. "They are one of the oldest peaceful civilizations in the galaxy. They have never been involved in any conflicts. They focus on scientific research and cultural exchange." Yoon nodded grimly. He had met a Veltar diplomat once during a trade conference. They were gentle people who reminded him of his grandmother. The idea of them being hunted down and killed made his blood boil. "And the Krex Empire?" he asked. "Military dictatorship," Sora replied. They have been expanding aggressively for the past 50 years. They usually force planets to surrender through threats rather than actual invasion. This level of violence is new for them. The communication console chimed with an incoming priority. Message from Fleet Command. Admiral Park wanted to see the Veltar transmission immediately. He also wanted a full tactical analysis of Krek's military capabilities within 2 hours. Yoon smiled grimly as he prepared the briefing materials he had a feeling Admiral Park was not going to respond to this message with diplomatic protests like the other galactic powers usually did. Earth had a different approach to dealing with bullies. The Terran Defense Force had been built on one simple principle. When innocent people were threatened, you did not negotiate with the aggressors. You eliminated them completely. Hannah did not know it yet, but her desperate message had reached exactly the right people. Earth was coming to help. And when the human fleet arrived at Kepler's system, the Krek's empire would learn what real warfare looked like. Admiral Park stood in the war room aboard the flagship Indomitable and studied the holographic display of the Kepler system. 3 weeks had passed since they left Earth orbit. In 6 hours they would arrive at their destination. The question was whether they would find any Veltar left alive to save. The briefing room was filled with his senior officers. Captain Yoon sat at the main table reviewing intelligence reports. Lieutenant Commander Minho worked at his tactical station running final combat scenarios. Chief Engineer Sora monitored the weapon system's status from a console. They had spent the entire journey preparing for this battle. What do we know about current conditions in the system? Admiral Park asked. Captain Jiwan looked up from her intelligence files. Long-range sensors show heavy Krek's fleet presence around the main planet, at least 200 ships of various classes. They have established orbital bombardment platforms and are systematically targeting population centers. Any word from the Veltar resistance? Park asked. Communications Officer Hannah is still transmitting from the northern continent. Yoon replied. Her last message was 18 hours ago. She reports that civilian casualties have reached 15 million. Most survivors are hiding in underground facilities and mountain caves. Admiral Park felt his jaw tighten. 15 million dead. In 3 weeks, the Kreks were not just conquering territory, they were erasing an entire civilization from existence. Sir, said Commander Dayon from the Fighter Operations Station, we have 47 ships in our task force. Intelligence suggests the fleet numbers over 300 vessels. Are we sure we can handle those odds? Park turned to face his officers. He had commanded fleets for 25 years. He had fought pirates in the asteroid belt and rebels on the outer colonies. But this would be different. This would be the first time Earth faced a major galactic power in open combat. The Kreks have never fought humans before, Park said calmly. They do not understand our tactics or our weapons. They use energy shields and plasma cannons like every other species in the galaxy. We use kinetic weapons and armor plating. He activated the tactical display showing Krek's ship designs. Their vessels were sleek and elegant with curved hulls designed to deflect energy weapons. Beautiful but impractical against solid projectiles. Their shields are useless against railgun rounds, continued Sora from her engineering station. Our computer models show that tungsten penetrators will punch straight through their defenses. They have never faced kinetic bombardment at the velocities we can achieve. Minho nodded from his tactical station. I have run 3,000 combat simulations during our journey. In every scenario where we maintain formation, discipline, and focus fire, we achieve victory despite being outnumbered. The key is not letting them surround us with their superior numbers. Captain Myray spoke up from the Marine Operations table. What about boarding actions? My troops are ready to take Krek's ships if needed. That will be necessary, Park replied. We need intelligence about their military structure and command hierarchy. More importantly, we need to rescue any Veltar prisoners they might be holding. The holographic display shifted to show the human fleet composition, 47 ships arranged in battle formation. They looked crude compared to other galactic vessels. Human ships were essentially flying fortresses covered in armor plating and bristling with weapon systems. The Terran Defense Force was built for one purpose, Park continued, to protect Earth and her colonies from any threat. Today, we extend that protection to an innocent species facing genocide. Engineer Sora stood up and activated the weapons status board. All ships report combat ready. Railgun systems are fully charged. Missile tubes are loaded with high explosive and kinetic penetrator warheads. Point defense arrays are online. We have enough ammunition for extended engagement. Fighter squadrons are ready for deployment, added Commander Dayon. 120 Raptor-class fighters with experienced pilots. They can provide close support and intercept enemy strike craft. Captain Yoon looked up from his communication station. I have been monitoring Krek's transmissions during our approach. They are not expecting resistance. Their fleet is spread out, conducting bombardment operations. They have no defensive formation. Admiral Park smiled grimly. The Kreks had made a critical mistake. They assumed that no one would challenge them. Other galactic civilizations preferred diplomatic solutions and economic sanctions. Earth had a different philosophy when dealing with genocidal aggressors. What is our rules of engagement? Asked Captain G1. Simple, Park replied. Any Krex vessel that does not immediately surrender will be destroyed. We are not here to capture territory or negotiate treaties. We are here to stop a genocide. That means eliminating the threat completely. The officers nodded grimly. They had all seen the video footage from Veltar Prime. Burning cities and mass graves, children hiding in caves while Krex soldiers hunted them. There would be no mercy for the perpetrators of such crimes. One more thing, Park continued. The galaxy is watching this engagement. How we perform here will determine Earth's position in galactic politics for generations. We need to send a clear message. When innocent people call for help, Earth answers. And when Earth answers, we do not just help, we solve the problem. Lieutenant Commander Minho activated the fleet communication system. All ships report ready for combat operations. Weapons are hot, shields are up. We are 6 hours from target. Admiral Park walked to the main view screen showing the stars ahead. Somewhere among those points of light was a world full of people who needed help. They had sent a desperate message across the galaxy begging for someone to save them. Most civilizations had ignored their plea or sent empty diplomatic protests. Earth had sent a fleet. Signal all ships, Park ordered. Begin final approach to the Kepler system. Combat stations in 1 hour. Today the galaxy learns what happens when you threaten innocent people in the presence of humans. Captain Yoon opened the communication channel to the fleet. All vessels. This is Admiral Park. In 6 hours we will engage a superior enemy force to protect civilians from genocide. This is what the Terran Defense Force was created for. This is our finest hour. The response came back from 47 ships simultaneously. For Earth and the innocent. We stand ready. Deep in space, the human fleet accelerated toward their destination. Behind them lay the safety of known space. Ahead waited a battle that would change the galaxy forever. The Krex Empire was about to learn that humans fought wars very differently than other species. They were about to learn what total war really meant. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler system. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched the tactical display populate with enemy contacts. The situation was worse than their intelligence had predicted. Sensor report, Park ordered. Lieutenant Commander Minho worked quickly at his station. 347 Krex vessels detected. Multiple ship classes including dreadnoughts and battle. They are spread across the system conducting bombardment operations. Captain Yoon pointed to the main display. Look at the planet, sir. The entire northern hemisphere is on fire. Park felt his anger rise as he studied the sensor readings from Veltar Prime. Massive energy signatures indicated ongoing orbital bombardment. The beautiful blue and green world from the intelligence files was now a burning orange and black sphere. Millions of innocent people were dying while they watched. Communications, Park commanded. Open a channel to the Krex fleet commander. The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of a massive Krex battleship. General Vorthok appeared on the display. He was a typical Krex warrior with thick gray skin and 4 arms. His red eyes showed amusement when he saw the small human fleet. Unknown species, Vorthok said in heavily accented galactic standard. You have entered restricted space. State your business or depart immediately. Admiral Park stepped forward. This is Admiral Park of the Terran Defense Force. You are conducting genocide against the Veltar people. Cease your attacks immediately and withdraw from this system. General Vorthok laughed loudly. His bridge officers joined in the laughter. Terran, I have never heard of your species. You have 47 small ships against my fleet of over 300. Are you insane? We are here to stop you from killing innocent people, Park replied calmly. This is your only warning. Withdraw or face the consequences. Consequences? Vorthok's amusement turned to anger. You primitive fools. I will add your ships to the wreckage orbiting this dead world. All units destroy these insignificant vessels. The communication channel closed. Immediately the Krex fleet began moving into attack formation. Their ships were fast and graceful as they maneuvered through space. Energy shields glowed around their hulls as they prepared for battle. Sir, reported Captain Jiwon from the intelligence station. Krex vessels are activating combat systems. Plasma weapons are charging. They are forming a standard envelopment pattern. Admiral Park nodded. The enemy was following predictable tactics. They would try to surround the human fleet and destroy them with overwhelming firepower. It was a strategy that worked well against other galactic civilizations who fought similar battles. All ships, battle formation Alpha, Park ordered. Maintain tight formation. Do not let them separate us. The human fleet moved into a compact defensive sphere. Their ships looked crude compared to the elegant Krex vessels. Human warships were essentially flying fortresses covered in thick armor. Plating they had been built to absorb punishment and deliver devastating counterattacks. Range to nearest enemy contacts. Park asked. 200,000 kilometers in closing, replied Minho. They will be in plasma weapon range in 3 minutes. Railgun batteries, prepare to fire, Park commanded. Target the lead battlecruiser. All ships focus fire on designated targets. Chief Engineer Sora monitored the weapon systems from her station. Railgun capacitors at full charge. Tungsten penetrator rounds loaded. Point defense systems online. The Krex fleet continued closing the distance. General Vorthok probably expected the humans to retreat or try to negotiate. Most galactic species preferred to avoid direct confrontation. They would rather accept minor losses than risk a major battle. Humans had a different philosophy. 100,000 kilometers, reported Minho. Krex ships are within optimal railgun range. Admiral Park studied the tactical display. The enemy fleet was perfectly positioned. They had committed to their attack formation and could not change course. Their shields were designed to deflect energy weapons, not solid projectiles. All ships, Park said quietly into his communicator. Fire. 47 human warships fired simultaneously. The railguns launched tungsten penetrator rounds at 15% the speed of light. The projectiles were invisible to the naked eye but showed clearly on tactical sensors as they streaked toward their targets the Krex had never seen kinetic weapons before. Their energy shields were completely useless against solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. The tungsten rounds punched through their defenses like they were not there. Commander Gina watched from the bridge of the destroyer, Retribution, as her ship's railgun found its target. The Krex battlecruiser simply disappeared in a flash of light as the penetrator round tore through its hull and detonated the reactor core. Direct hit, she reported over the fleet communication channel. Target destroyed. Across the battle space, similar reports came in from other human ships. The first salvo had eliminated 12 Krex vessels completely. 8 more were heavily damaged and drifting with massive hull breaches. General Vorthok stared at his tactical display in shock. 20 of his ships had been destroyed or disabled in seconds. The primitive human fleet had weapons that completely bypassed Krex defenses. How is this possible? He demanded from his bridge crew. Our shields should have stopped those attacks. General, reported his tactical officer. They are using kinetic projectiles, not energy weapons. Our shields cannot deflect solid matter at those velocities. The human fleet was already preparing for their second salvo. Steam vented from their ships as the railgun capacitors recharged. Point defense turrets tracked incoming plasma bolts and destroyed them with rapid-fire kinetic rounds. Return fire, Vorthok screamed. Destroy those ships. The Krex fleet unleashed a massive barrage of plasma weapons and missile attacks. Brilliant energy beams and explosive warheads filled the space between the two fleets. It was an impressive display of firepower that would have destroyed any other galactic fleet. The human ships barely noticed. Their thick armor plating absorbed the plasma impacts. Their point defense systems shot down incoming missiles with mechanical precision. Few ships reported minor damage but nothing that affected their combat capability. Armor holding on all ships, reported Sora. Minor surface scoring on decks 7 through 12. All systems operational. Admiral Park smiled grimly. The Krex were learning what happened when energy weapons met properly designed armor. Human ships had been built to survive nuclear attacks during the old Earth Wars. Alien plasma cannons were actually less dangerous than their own historical weapons. Second salvo. Fire. Park ordered. Another 20 Krex ships disappeared in flashes of light. The enemy formation began to break apart as commanders realized their weapons were ineffective. Some ships tried to retreat while others attempted desperate ramming attacks. General Vorthok watched his fleet being systematically destroyed by an enemy he had dismissed as primitive. These humans fought like nothing he had ever encountered. Their weapons were devastating and their ships seemed almost indestructible. Sir, his communications officer reported with fear in his voice. We are receiving surrender requests from multiple ships. Fleet casualties are approaching 40%. The battle that should have been an easy victory was turning into a complete disaster. The Krex Empire was about to learn that Earth's fleet did not come to help. They came to win. The space around Veltar Prime was filled with debris from destroyed Krex ships. Admiral Park watched the tactical display as his fleet methodically hunted down the remaining enemy vessels. What had started as an organized Krex attack had turned into complete chaos. General Vorthok tried desperately to rally his remaining ships. All units formed defensive positions around the orbital platforms, used the planet's gravity well to limit their movement. But his commanders were no longer listening. 2 orders, half of his fleet was already destroyed or disabled. The surviving ships were scattered across the system trying to escape the devastating human railgun fire. Captain Yoon monitored enemy communications from his station. Sir, we are intercepting multiple surrender requests from individual Krex ships. Their fleet cohesion has completely collapsed. Any word from their command ship? Park asked. General Vorthok is still trying to coordinate a counterattack, Yoon replied. But most of his captains are ignoring his orders and attempting to retreat. Admiral Park studied the battle situation. The main Krex fleet was broken, but there were still orbital bombardment platforms attacking the planet's surface. Innocent Velta were still dying while they fought in space. Commander Daeun, launch all fighter squadrons. Park ordered. Target those orbital platforms. Stop the bombardment immediately. Yes, sir. Daeun replied from his fighter operations. Station all squadrons launching now. 120 human fighters launched from the fleet carriers. The small craft moved with incredible speed toward the massive orbital weapons platforms. Unlike the main fleet battle, this would require precision strikes rather than overwhelming firepower. Commander Dayon led the first squadron himself. His fighter was armed with specialized armor-piercing missiles designed to take out fortified positions. The orbital platforms were huge structures bristling with defensive weapons. Eagle Squadron, follow my lead, Dayon commanded over the fighter communication channel. Hit the power generators first. Without power they cannot fire on the planet. The fighters dove toward the nearest platform. Krek's defensive turrets opened fire with plasma cannons and missile batteries, but the human pilots had trained for exactly this type of assault. They used hit-and-run tactics, striking fast and pulling away before the enemy could lock onto them. Lieutenant Sunho fired his missiles at the platform's main reactor. The armor-piercing warheads punched through the outer hull and detonated inside the power core. The entire structure went dark as its systems shut down. Platform 1 is offline, he reported. Moving to target Platform 2. Similar attacks were happening across the orbital battlespace. Human fighters systematically disabled the bombardment platforms while the main fleet continued destroying Krek's warships. It was a coordinated assault that showed the difference between human military doctrine and typical galactic warfare. On the planet's surface, Hannah watched the sky through her bunker's observation window. The constant orange glow of orbital bombardment was finally stopping. Explosions still lit up the night, but they were happening in space now instead of on her world. The bombardment has stopped, she announced to the other survivors in the bunker. Something is happening up there. Elder Keth, one of the few government officials still alive, joined her at the window. Do you think help has finally arrived? Hannah activated her communication equipment and tried to contact the mysterious fleet that had appeared in the system. She had been monitoring the battle on military frequencies. The attackers called themselves humans and they were systematically destroying the Krek's fleet. Unknown human fleet. This is Communications Officer Hannah of the Veltar Republic. She transmitted, we are still alive down here. Civilian population is hiding in underground shelters across the northern continent. The response came immediately from Captain Yoon aboard the Indomitable. Hannah, this is Captain Yoon of the Terran Defense Force. We received your distress call 3 weeks ago. We are here to help your people. Tears ran down Hannah's blue cheeks as she heard those words. Someone had actually come to save them. After weeks of watching her civilization being destroyed, there was finally hope. Captain Yoon, we have approximately 2 million survivors scattered across the planet. Most are in mountain caves and underground facilities. The Kreks have ground forces hunting for refugees. Understood, Yoon replied. We are preparing marine landing forces to deal with enemy ground troops. Hold your positions and transmit locations of survivor groups when possible. Captain Murray was already preparing her marine battalions for planetary assault. Unlike other galactic species who preferred negotiated surrenders, humans believed in completely eliminating threats. That meant hunting down every Krek soldier on the planet's surface. All marine units, prepare for combat drop, Murray announced to her troops. The enemy has been conducting genocide against civilians. No quarter will be given to war criminals. The Marines loaded into their dropships with grim determination. They had seen the video footage of Krek's atrocities during the journey from Earth. These were not soldiers fighting for territory or resources. These were murderers who targeted innocent families. High above the planet, the space battle was reaching its conclusion. General Vorthok's command ship was surrounded by burning wreckage from his fleet. Only 50 Krix vessels remained operational out of the original 340. This is impossible, Vorthok screamed at his tactical officer. How can such a small fleet destroy my entire armada? General, their weapons technology is completely unknown, the officer replied fearfully. Our energy shields provide no protection against their kinetic projectiles. Our plasma cannons cannot penetrate their armor. Admiral Park opened a communication channel to the Krek's command ship. General Vorthok, your fleet is destroyed. Surrender immediately and your surviving crews will be treated according to galactic war conventions. Vorthok's face appeared on the main screen. His red eyes burned with hatred and disbelief. You think you have won? The Krek's empire spans hundreds of systems. This is only one fleet. More will come to avenge this defeat. Then they will share your fate, Park replied calmly. Earth does not negotiate with genocidal regimes. We eliminate them completely. The communication channel closed. Vorthok turned to his bridge crew with desperate fury. All remaining ships, ramming speed. If we cannot defeat them with weapons, we will destroy them with our hulls. The surviving Krek's vessels accelerated toward the human fleet in a final suicidal charge. It was a move born of desperation rather than tactical thinking. The human ships simply adjusted their formation and prepared to receive the attack. Commander Gina watched from the retribution as enemy ships approached at maximum speed. Point defense systems, engage enemy vessels. Do not let them reach ramming distance. The human fleet's defensive turrets opened fire with rapid-fire kinetic rounds. The incoming Krek ships were torn apart by the concentrated firepower before they could close the distance. Within minutes, the last of Vorthok's fleet was nothing but expanding clouds of debris. The Battle of Veltar Prime was over. The Krex Empire had learned what happened when they threatened innocent people in the presence of humans. Now the real work would begin. The planet needed to be secured and the survivors needed help rebuilding their civilization. But first, there were war criminals to hunt down. 3 days after the battle, Admiral Park stood in the ruins of what had once been Veltar Prime's capital city. The devastation was worse than anything he had seen during his military career. Entire city blocks were reduced to ash and rubble. The air still smelled of smoke and death. Captain Mireille approached him through the debris field. Her marine armor was covered in dust from the ongoing search and rescue operations. "Sir, we have secured the last Krex position on the northern continent. General Vorthok is in custody along with 200 surviving enemy soldiers." "Casualties?" Park asked. "Minimal on our side," Mireille replied. The Krex ground forces were not prepared to face human infantry tactics. They expected to continue hunting defenseless civilians, not fight trained soldiers. Park nodded grimly. The Krex had learned too late that humans fought very differently than other galactic species. They did not just drive off attackers or negotiate surrenders. They hunted down every enemy soldier until the threat was completely eliminated. "What about civilian survivors?" "We have located over 1,800,000 Veltar in various hiding places," Mireille reported. "Medical teams are providing aid and supplies. Many are in poor condition after weeks of hiding without adequate food or medicine." Admiral Park looked across the destroyed cityscape. Before the Krex attack, this had been home to 12 million Veltar. Now only scattered groups remained. Traumatized survivors of systematic genocide. Communications officer Hannah emerged from a partially collapsed building nearby. She had been helping coordinate rescue efforts since the human fleet arrived. Her blue scales were dulled with exhaustion, but her eyes showed hope for the first time in weeks. "Admiral Park," she said as she approached, "I wanted to thank you personally. Without Earth's intervention, my people would have been completely extinct within days." "We came as soon as we received your message," Park replied. "I only wish we could have arrived sooner." Hannah looked around at the destruction surrounding them. "Other civilizations received our distress call as well. The Altarian Republic sent diplomatic protests. The Centauri Federation offered to mediate peace talks. The Rigel Alliance promised economic sanctions against the Krex Empire. But only Earth sent a fleet," Park said quietly. "Yes," Hannah replied. "Only humans were willing to actually fight. To save us." Captain Yoon joined them carrying a communication tablet. "Sir, we are receiving priority transmissions from multiple galactic governments. They want to discuss the battle and its implications." Park took the tablet and reviewed the messages. The Galactic Council was demanding an immediate hearing about human military actions. The Altarian Republic wanted explanations for what they called excessive use of force. Even the normally neutral vegan collective was expressing concern about human warfare tactics. "They are afraid," Yoon observed. "The entire galaxy just watched 47 human ships destroy a fleet of over 300 Krex vessels. They did not know we possessed that level of military capability." Admiral Park handed the tablet back to Yoon. "Schedule a galactic communication conference for tomorrow. Representatives from all major civilizations. They need to understand Earth's position clearly." That evening, Park stood in the communication center aboard the Indomitable. The main screen showed representatives from dozens of galactic civilizations. Their expressions ranged from curiosity to fear to barely concealed hostility. Chancellor Vex of the Altarian Republic spoke first. "Admiral Park, the Altarian government demands an explanation for your unprovoked attack on the Krex fleet. Your actions have destabilized the entire sector, unprovoked." Park replied calmly. "The Krex Empire was conducting systematic genocide against the Veltor people. 15 million civilians were murdered in 3 weeks. That was an internal matter," insisted Ambassador Ezrael of the Centauri Federation. "Galactic law requires diplomatic solutions to conflicts between sovereign systems." Park felt his anger rising but kept his voice level. "Diplomatic solutions to genocide. While innocent people are being slaughtered, you wanted to hold committee meetings and draft strongly worded statements." High Counselor Vex of the Rigel Alliance leaned forward on the screen. "Your military intervention sets a dangerous precedent. What gives Earth the right to interfere in conflicts between other species?" "The right of any civilized being to protect innocent life," Park replied. "When people are being murdered simply for existing, diplomacy is not enough." "But your methods," protested Chancellor Vex. "The complete destruction of the Krex fleet, the hunting down of their ground forces. This level of violence is unprecedented in modern galactic warfare." Admiral Park studied the faces on the screen. These were the representatives of civilizations that had received a Veltar distress call and chosen to do nothing. They were more concerned about maintaining political stability than saving lives. "Let me be clear about Earth's position," Park said firmly. "The Terran Federation will not tolerate genocide in any form. When innocent people call for help, we will answer, and when we answer, we do not negotiate with murderers, we eliminate them." The galactic representatives exchanged worried glances. Ambassador Ezrael spoke up again. "Admiral, surely you understand that military force should be a last resort. There are established procedures for handling conflicts. Your established procedures failed, Park replied bluntly. While you were drafting diplomatic protests, millions of Velta were dying. Earth chose action over bureaucracy. High Counselor, Vex looked uncomfortable, but the implications of your actions extend far beyond this single incident. Other aggressive species will now fear human intervention. It could destabilize the entire balance of power. Park smiled grimly. Good genocidal regimes should fear consequences for their actions. If the current balance of power allows systematic murder of civilians, then it needs to change. The communication channel filled with protests and arguments from various representatives. They were all afraid of the same thing. Earth had demonstrated military capabilities that exceeded anything in the known galaxy. More importantly, humans had shown they were willing to use that power to protect innocents regardless of political considerations. Chancellor Vex tried to regain control of the discussion. Admiral Park, the Galactic Council will need to review Earth's actions and determine appropriate responses. Your government will be contacted through proper diplomatic channels. Of course, Park replied. But understand this, Earth's policy will not change based on your review. When innocent people are threatened, we will respond. The only question is whether other civilizations will join us in protecting the defenseless, or continue hiding behind diplomatic procedures. The communication ended with the representatives still arguing among themselves. Captain Yoon looked at Admiral Park with concern. Sir, we may have just made enemies of half the galaxy. Perhaps, Park replied. But we also sent a clear message. Earth stands with the innocent against their oppressors. That message needed to be heard. Over the following weeks, the galaxy learned exactly what Earth's message meant. 3 more distress calls arrived from civilizations facing aggressive neighbors. In each case, human fleets responded immediately while other galactic powers debated diplomatic options. The Krex Empire attempted to send another fleet to retake Veltar Prime. Admiral Park's task force intercepted them at the system border and destroyed every ship. No warnings were given. No surrender was accepted. General Vorthok was tried for war crimes and sentenced to life imprisonment. His surviving soldiers were returned to Krex space with a simple message. Tell your leaders what happens to those who target civilians. 6 months later, Hannah stood in the rebuilt communication center of New Veltar City. The Terran Federation had provided aid and supplies to help her people rebuild their civilization. More importantly, they had left a permanent fleet base in the system to deter future attacks. She activated the long-range transmitter and sent a message across the galaxy. This is the Veltar Republic. We are alive. We are free. We are protected by those who believe that innocent life has value. The message reached hundreds of worlds where oppressed peoples lived in fear of aggressive neighbors. For the first time in generations, they had hope. Earth had shown the galaxy that someone was willing to fight for those who could not fight for themselves. The age of diplomatic solutions to genocide was ending. The age of human protection had begun.